Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Jose Johnson versus ASU Almabaev. My prediction for this fight is Almabaev wins by decision. I think he's a skilled grappler, and submission is definitely not off the table. But I think he's going to use his grappling to slow down and neutralize Jose Johnson. I don't think Almabaev has close to the physicality of a guy like Damon Blackshear, who was the one guy to submit Jose Johnson in the last 6 or 7 years. But Jose Johnson is incredibly dangerous. On the feet, the guy's got the magic touch. He's got killer power. And he can definitely separate anybody from their senses, even if they haven't been knocked out, like Almabaev. Although he was TKO'd technically, but it was ground and pound in the final seconds of round three against Taira Ulanbekov. And he was knocked down, by the way. I've seen Almabaev knocked down against Chris Kalidas, former UFC fighter. But still, I consider him pretty healthy. I think even though Jose Johnson can knock him out, I can't trust that. And I do think Almabaev will be able to get inside the foot and a half of height and reach of Jose Johnson. That was a bit of an exaggeration, but really not much. It's like at least halfway there. And I think on the ground, Jose Johnson, while he's definitely got more to offer than meets the eye, the guy's got some good submission skills, but he's definitely going to be outgunned here, especially once he loses the positional battle to Almabaev. Let me talk about their losses here. Almabaev's got two. He lost one by split decision to this guy, Mamedov. I haven't seen the fight. I really tried to, but wasn't available. But apparently it was pretty close. Unless it was scored by David Torelli or something, then who knows. And his other loss comes to Tagir Ulanbekov. Like I said, that was a TKO loss. Tagir, who's fighting on this card, is a monster, and he was able to take over that fight, especially at the end of round two, getting on top of Almabaev. And I think that sucks some of the life out of him with this bigger guy on top. And in round three, Tagir got on top again and just pounded on him and forced the stoppage at the end of the round. But that was many years ago, and that was his last loss. Since then, he's been winning every fight and dominating most of them. I have seen him hurt. Chris Kalidas, like I said, knocked him down. He had a really close fight with Zach Makovsky, former UFC fighter. Almabaev definitely got the better of the grappling altogether in that fight, but he was swept in rounds 1 and 2 and swept right into the mount from Zach Makovsky, hence the split decision. But since making it to the UFC, he's looked really good, taking out O'Day Osborne, of course, in his UFC debut, submitting him in round 2. And against CJ Vergara, who may not be the best victory, but the guy's very fucking tough. Toughness is his defining trait. And Almabaev was able to beat him and dominate him in a decision and not let him fight his way back into the fight and start landing knees to the body like CJ Vergara can do. Jose Johnson, he's got a record of 16-8. His 8 losses come 1 via knockout. Mana Martinez, who I mentioned last week, knocked out Ricky Tercios. He's the one guy to do that. Well, he's also the one guy to knock out Jose Johnson. The guy's exceptionally dangerous. So there's a little forgiveness there. And he was submitted 4 times. The last one came by Damon Blackshear a year ago with the Twister. I think Jose took the fight on very short notice. But that didn't have much to do with it because it happened in round 1. Damon Blackshear, phenomenal, getting that Twister. And then a week later, he stepped in to fight Mario Batista, and he could have won that one. I don't know why I'm talking about him here. But his last submission loss before that was to Levi Moles, who another guy like Mana Martinez, I mentioned last week and I mention every week, Levi Moles, because he's beaten a UFC fighter on every card pretty much. Guy was a really talented fighter, wrestler, and he was able to ground Jose Johnson and choke him out in round 1 with a rear naked choke. And then he's got 2 other losses before that to definitely not below average fighters, but let's say average fighters, and they were submissions in round 1. But his last few losses, besides Damon Blackshear, have been by decision. Mana Martinez knocked him out in 2021. But Ronnie Lawrence beat him on the Contender Series in 2020. that was pretty much grappling dominance from Ronnie Lawrence, where Jose Johnson wasn't able to make anything happen. He was smothered and controlled, and Ronnie was able to dominate him wrestling wise and jiu-jitsu wise. And he also lost to this guy Armando Villarreal in the LFA in 2018. That was another grappling loss, but in the end, he turned things around and actually got the guy on the ground and took his back in round 3 and won the round. Still, Jose Johnson, even though he's shown something in a lot of his defeats and his victories, he's got so many beautiful victories, a lot of knockouts, and some decent submissions as well. Triangle choke over the guy Mo Miller, who was threatening him early. And Chad and Helger in his last fight. Getting Chad out of there in round 3 was incredibly impressive to me. Chad and Helger is Mr. Comeback. He's Mr. Round 3 fighter. And Jose Johnson, with 10 seconds left on the clock, was able to force the tap on Chad. Even though he was going to win the decision anyway, Jose Johnson. But his danger came through for him when he least needed it. But here, I do think his danger is not going to be there for him. Maybe early on, of course, where he's going to be at range with Almabaev. But I think Almabaev is going to be able to get inside on him. He's very fast. And I think once he's inside, he's going to take away a lot of that danger of Jose Johnson, and he's going to start to take over the fight. Ripping him to the mat. I don't think he'll advance on him like these bigger guys have, but I do think he'll control him. He'll control him and work him over. Almabaev's got good submission skills as well, just like Jose Johnson, but they're a little more proven. He's gotten some really nice subs, rear naked chokes, a lot of them. Also an arm bar and a Peruvian necktie as well. And the arm bar he hit coming off of a suplex. The guy suplexed him and he hipped into an arm bar. It was fucking phenomenal. So the guy's definitely got some flashiness, perhaps, if need be. But yeah, Jose Johnson, I think there's a value on his money line because he shouldn't be this big of a favorite. Almabaev, I think, will be relegated to controlling Jose Johnson and slowing him down. But Jose Johnson's a big, strong athlete, and he's shown to have a lot of heart. Even though I just went through all the times he's been finished and whatever, he's shown a lot of heart, and he's shown good cardio as well, in victory and defeat. So I think this is a closer battle than meets the eye, but the prediction is still Almabaev wins by decision. I haven't played his money line, and I'll wait for the props because, even though he's a good submission artist, again, I think he lacks the physicality to go through Jose Johnson like some of these other guys have, and I think it's going to be a decision. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.